Local media say one person died as firefighters tried to rescue those trapped inside the building. At least 3 others are still missing. The abandoned office block was being used by homeless people.
We couldn't control the fire. It started at 1:30 a.m. All the teams went out to the location. 170 men, 57 trucks at the location fighting. Unfortunately, the structure collapsed. Now we're going to work on putting out the flames, and afterward we'll look for possible missing people.
Let's get more from journalist Sam Cowie, who joins us now from Sao Paulo. And the pictures, Sam, of that building are quite astonishing. What's the latest on the fire?
Well, we've just heard right now from Brazil's O Globo network that the fire was most likely started by a couple who were fighting while using alcohol to cook with inside the building. So this is coming from an eyewitness reported by O Globo that he saw the fire start on the 5th floor of the building after he heard some pushing and shoving and shouts of fire, fire. A couple apparently cooking inside the building using alcohol to cook with. Bottled gas prices in Brazil have increased recently tremendously, which during this economic downturn in Brazil has affected poor people's and homeless people's and squatters, like in this situation's, budget enormously. So yes, we understand that at least 4 people are missing and 1 person is presumed dead, but these official figures of dead and injured, they haven't been officialized yet by the authorities. 90 families were living inside of this building in the center of Sao Paulo, which was an old government building that had been abandoned for several years.
And so is this a common occurrence then in cities like this in Brazil, that these abandoned blocks will be taken over by families?
Yeah, let's say it's very common. There are at least 150 similar buildings in Sao Paulo like this. Also plots of land which are taken over too. And fires in these areas are quite common because basically these are completely abandoned territories. And so there's no health and safety precautions which are, provided by the state. I mean, one would assume that inside this building where the fire took place, that there would be very little in terms of safety equipment, perhaps a fire extinguisher at best, and that a fire like this, clearly spread out of control extremely quickly. And this is very common. We see fires in these kind of abandoned and occupied buildings and parts of the city. It's a very common occurrence in Sao Paulo, usually because of cooking accidents, accidents with electricity, which is set up with precarious wiring that is tapped into the state electricity. So yeah, it's an absolute tragedy that we've seen today, but it's by no means a rare occurrence. Just the visualization of this building falling down in the way that it did has probably gathered a lot more media attention than perhaps it would otherwise. But these fires in occupied buildings and occupied parts of land in Sao Paulo, very common indeed.